All right. Welcome, welcome. If you are new here, I am really glad you came to join us, and I hope this is just a really good use of your time. And then if you've been here before, welcome back. If you're watching on YouTube, go to the description and grab the handout for this session so you can follow along. And Beth, I'm sorry, I forgot to drop it. Will you drop that? It's in the folder.
Sure.
And if this kind of legal technology talk is helpful, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos on legal technology talk. So in the chat, she's going to drop the handout that you can follow along, take notes if you want as well. So today we are going to talk about tasks in Lawmatics, and then I'll do a demo at the end. Now, I know this may not sound like the most exciting topic in the world. Nobody sees a task list and says, wow, this is where the magic happens. Most people see a task list and think, great, more things I'm already behind on. But that's exactly why we need to talk about it, because tasks are not supposed to be where work goes to die.
John,
Tasks are
your
supposed,
your stuff is all way off and wonky, sorry.
oh, it did move. Well, that's weird. Oh, it's because here, let's fix that. There we go.
Oh yeah, hey, that's a lot better.
Is that better?
That's better.
Also, for some
All right.
reason the chat button isn't coming. I'm trying to click on the chat so I can see the
Yep. Give me 1 second, it should pop up for you.
okay.
As soon as I drop this in there, it's gonna go, oh. There you go. Now did it pop up?
Yes.
There
Yep,
you go.
there it is.
All right. Perfect.
Okay.
Um, But yeah, so this is not where tasks are not where work goes to die. Tasks are supposed to be where human work becomes clear. And that's where I'm going to spin this today. A task is not just a reminder. A task is not just a sticky note inside your CRM. And a task is not just a digital version of someone yelling, don't forget this. A good task is a human checkpoint. It is the place in your process where the system says a person needs to step in here. And I want to clarify, this session is not about reporting or anything like that. This is just about the manual side of running a law office. Um, More about that other aspect is going to be in next week's topic with Beth. So this kind of is going to be a precursor to that, and then she's going to take it much, much further. This is strictly about human intervention. So when the system says a person needs to step in here, that person might need to review something, call someone, approve something, make a judgment call, check the details, follow up with the client for something specific, or confirm whether a lead is ready for the next step. That is where the tasks matter. And that is why tasks should not be treated like a boring side feature. They are one of the places where your law firm's actual human service shows up inside the system. So, I want to start off with a quick story. I remember walking into the law firm that I worked at and Beth worked at, sitting down for the day, opening the system, and seeing 119 overdue tasks. 119 before I even had coffee. The task list had already chosen violence. And here's the problem with that. When you have 119 overdue tasks, it does not feel like organization. It feels like getting mugged by your own CRM because you see tasks like follow up, but there's no context. Follow up with who? About what? From where? Was it already done? Did someone call them? Did they answer? Did they hire us? Did they ghost us? Was this task created by a person? Was it created by a workflow? Was it created by someone who left the firm 6 months ago? Now, at a certain point, the team stops trusting the task list. And once your team stops trusting the task list becomes decoration. People go back to sticky notes, spreadsheets, memory, random emails, and tapping someone on the shoulder saying, hey, did you ever handle that thing? This is how work gets missed and things fall through the cracks. Not because people don't care, not because the team is lazy, but because the system became too noisy to be useful. So that's what we're trying to fix today. The goal is not to eliminate tasks. That's not realistic. And honestly, that's not even the right goal. The goal is to make tasks fewer, clearer, better timed, better assigned, and more connected to the real workflow of the firm. With your CRM, like Lawmatics and practice management system, Automations can reduce unnecessary manual work, but tasks still matter because some work still needs a human. Let a robot do what a robot can do, and a human do what only a human can do. That's our guiding line today. So we're going to cover 3 points. Point 1 is tasks are human checkpoints. Point 2 is automations clear the clutter. And point 3, the task list should tell the truth. So let's talk about point 1. Tasks are human checkpoints. The first thing I want you to rethink is what a task actually is. Most law firms treat tasks like reminders. Call Bob, email Sarah, follow up, check status, review files, send something, do something. And that is fine at a basic level, but it misses the bigger idea. A task should represent a moment where a human needs to enter the process. That is the difference. The task is not the whole process. The task is the human checkpoint inside the process. For example, if a lead fills out an intake form, the system can capture the information automatically. Lawmatics can update the contact. Lawmatics can update the matter. It can send an email and text message and start a campaign of emails, and it can move the matter into the right pipeline. But at some point, a person may need to review what came in. Things like, is this a good fit? Is this the right practice area? Is anything missing? Does this person need a call? Should this be scheduled, declined, escalated? That is a task. The automation handles the movement. The task handles the judgment. And that is a very different way to think about tasks because it's not, the system could not do this, so now I have to. A task is, this is important enough that a human needs to touch it. That makes tasks feel different. They're not punishment, they're not busy work, and they're not clutter. They're decision points. They are the service points and they're accountability points. They're the place where the client experience needs a person, and they're the final glue of your signature client experience that you pride yourself in for your law firm. So when you're building tasks list in Lawmatics, there's a few questions to ask yourself. Does a human need to think, decide, review, approve, call, or personally respond here? If yes, that may be a task. If no, it may not need to be a task at all. We've seen people in firms who want a task of every automated operation to ensure they check it happened. This is possibly okay when you first dive into automations, but that quickly becomes overwhelming and unproductive and creates clutter. Those tasks need to go away eventually if you're doing that. You have to learn to trust the system. There are better ways to audit your system and processes, what automations are doing that we've talked about in detail in previous open coaching sessions. But asking, does a human need to think, decide, review, approve, call, or personally respond here? That question alone can clean up a lot of systems because a lot of firms create tasks for things the system can already do. A task to send a confirmation email, to remind the client of an appointment, to send a form, to notify someone internally. A task to update a status or to move something to the next stage. Those might not be human tasks when you have an automated system such as Lawmatics. Those might be automation work. That's the robot. And every time you make a human do robot work, you make the task list worse and degrade the value of your team members who are so much more to the firm than doing a robot's work. You add one more thing for the team to ignore, delay, or manually complete. This is how you end up with 119 overdue tasks. Not all at once, one unnecessary task at a time. So point 1 is simple. Tasks are for human checkpoints. If it requires judgment, relationship, review, approval, or a personal action, it probably belongs as a task. If it is repetitive, predictable, and rule-based, it probably belongs somewhere else, like an automation. So now let's go to point 2. Automations clear the clutter. So now let's talk about automations, the other side, because automations don't compete with tasks, they work together in tandem. But with automations, we're only going to talk about it in the context of tasks because this session is not really about automations, it's about how automations make your task list better. Automations do not make tasks irrelevant. Automations make tasks more meaningful. They remove the clutter around the task so the human only sees what actually needs human attention. So an example, I was cutting tons of my bushes last week out in my backyard. I took about 14 feet off one of my bushes and my neighbor was looking and she said, "Oh, there's a tree in there." I thought it was all bushes. And instantly I thought how relatable that is. Clearing the clutter to see what is actually there and meaningful. Because you couldn't see that tree, but I cleared the clutter and now you can see the tree and now it can grow and get the sunlight that it needs to flourish. So think about it like this. If your team is constantly doing little administrative steps before they can do the real work, their tasks feel heavier. They have to check whether the client got the email. They have to send the form. They have to update the matter. They have to assign the stage. They have to notify someone, and then they have to remember what happens next. And after all that, they still have to do the actual human part. That is exhausting. That causes burnout. And that's one of the reasons there's a lot of turnover in law firms. But when Lawmatics automations are set up well and smartly, the system can do the prep work. The system can send the emails and text messages and the form. It can update the status. It can notify the team. The system can start the next workflow. And then it can create a task only when a human is actually needed. And that's the sweet spot. A task appears at the right moment after the robot work is already done. That is when the task becomes useful. Whoops. It started jumping on me. There we go. Okay. So here's a simple example. Someone submits a consultation request. Lawmatics can send the person a confirmation email, notify your intake team, add the correct source or campaign information, place the matter in the correct pipeline, trigger a follow-up sequence, and then create a task that says review consultation request and decide next step. Now, I will tell you, there are ways to even automate that, but I just want to give you an example of what it might look like. But that is a good task. It's clear, it has purpose. It appears because something happened. It points to a real human action. That is very different from someone manually creating a vague task that says check lead. Well, check for what? When? Why? What am I looking for? What happens after I check it? What do you want me to do with it? Good tasks should reduce confusion, not create it. And remember, as I'm going to show you in the demo at the end, a task can start another automation when it's completed. And it can start the process right up. You just had a yield sign, and now you're ready to go again. Now, there are different types of tasks you can use in Lawmatics and different CRMs. You can create one-off tasks. That is useful when something really unique comes up. Maybe a client asks for something unusual. Maybe a team member needs to review a specific note. Maybe you need to remember a specific follow-up that does not fit the normal workflow. Maybe the attorney made promises to the client in the conference room. That is a one-off task. You can also create tasks based on an action someone takes in the CRM. For example, when a matter is moved to a certain stage, a task can be created. When a form is submitted, a task can be created. When a status changes, a task can be created. That is where tasks start becoming part of the process and not just noise. You can also have tasks that lead to other tasks. When one task is completed, that completion can trigger the next task or the next step. That is important because a lot of law firm work is sequential. So first we review the intake, then we call the lead, then we send the agreement, then we confirm payment, then we open the matter, then we collect documents, then we prepare the next step. When those steps live only in someone's head, the firm is fragile. When those steps live in Lawmatics or your CRM through tasks and automations, the firms become more consistent. The robot handles the repeatable parts. The human handles the judgment parts, and the task list becomes a guided path instead of a pile of reminders. That's the difference. And I do want to state one thing that many people ask. If a process stops with a task and the task doesn't get completed or not fast enough, does that pause the whole process? And the answer is no, if you have built-in guardrails. that send reminders to the assignees of the task to do it. And if it's not completed in a certain time frame, a notification can go to the firm manager to address. So there's plenty of guardrails in place if you do it smartly to keep the process moving, even in the human moments required. So point two is this: automations do not replace tasks. Automations protect tasks from becoming clutter and meaningless. We saw some systems that had tasks that said nothing more than to create another task. That is meaningless. So now, point three, the task list should tell the truth. This is the one that I really want everybody to hear. Your task list needs to tell the truth. If it says something is urgent, it should actually be urgent. If it says something is overdue, it should actually matter that it is overdue. If it is assigned to someone, that person should actually be the responsible person for it. And if the task says follow-up, the person reading it should know what that means. If the task exists, it should have a reason to exist. Now that sounds really obvious, but this is where a lot of task systems fall apart. The task list becomes full of things that are old, vague, duplicated, unnecessary, or created by automations that were never cleaned up. And once the task list stops telling the truth, people stop listening to it. It's the boy who cried wolf. And that is why task design matters. And I want to really highlight this because, yes, I use the word design very intentionally. Not visual design, workflow design. A good task should be specific enough that someone can act on it without needing to become a detective. Instead of follow-up, maybe it says call lead after intake form submission. Instead of review, maybe it is review estate planning intake and confirm missing information. Instead of check status, maybe it's confirm whether signed agreement was received. And instead of client docs, maybe it is review uploaded documents before attorney meeting. You're being very clear and you're taking the detective work out of what that task means. That is better because the task tells the person what to do. And when tasks are written clearly, your team does not waste energy trying to interpret the system. The work just gets done. And this is where also task statuses matter. Your task status should match how your firm actually works. A task status is selecting if it's not started, if it's in progress, if it's completed, if it's waiting, things like that. But not everything is just open or done. Maybe you need statuses like not started, in progress, waiting on client, waiting on internal review, and completed. Maybe you need something different. The point is not to make the status list complicated. The point is to make it useful. And if a team member needs a new status added that doesn't interfere with other processes, add it. It's beneficial to them, so it's beneficial to the firm. Because if every task is just sitting there as open, you cannot tell what's really happening. Is it started? Is it not started? Is someone working on it? Is it blocked? Is it waiting on the client? Is it basically done but waiting for confirmation? Another thing is CRMs like Lawmatics can do subtasks. Sometimes a task is too big by itself. Prepare client for signing meeting. Might involve several smaller steps. Confirm contact information, send final documents, confirm payment, schedule signing, notify attorney, and mark file ready. Instead of creating a messy pile of separate tasks, subtasks can help organize smaller steps under one larger piece of work. Now, different task views matter too. Sometimes a person needs to see their own tasks. Sometimes a manager needs to see team tasks. Sometimes you need to see overdue tasks. Sometimes you need to see tasks by matter or by due date. And sometimes you just need to see what is waiting on a client. The view changes depending on the question you are asking. And that is why most CRMs, and namely Lawmatics task views, are not just a convenience, they're a management tool. And then, of course, there's notifications. This is simple but important. A task that nobody notices is not a task, it's a wish. If the right person does not know the task exists, the system is not working. So notifications matter. Not too many, not noise, but the right notifications for the right tasks at the right time. Because if everything screams, nothing is heard. And that is the same problem as the 119 overdue tasks. The task list has to be believable, it has to be useful, and it has to tell the truth. And when it does, your team can start trusting it again. And that's when tasks become powerful. They become another engine in your firm, not because they're fancy, not because they're complicated, but because they are clear. A clear task gives the right person the right action at the right moment. And that is the entire game. So now bringing it together, and I'm going to bring it back to the big idea. Lawmatics, or whatever CRM you use, tasks are the manual side of your system. They are the places where your CRM or practice management system needs a human. That does not mean the system failed. That means the system knows where the human belongs, and that is a healthy workflow. A bad workflow makes humans do robot work. A bad workflow makes robots try to replace human judgment. A good workflow separates the two. The robot does what only a robot can do, and the human does what only a human can do. So when you're looking at your own Lawmatics or your own CRM setup, look at your tasks and ask yourself, why does this task exist? Does a human really need to do this? Could Lawmatics handle the step before this? Could it create the tasks automatically? Could completing this task trigger the next step? And is the task clear enough for someone else to understand? Is it assigned to the right person? Is it showing up at the right time? Is the notification useful? Is this a human checkpoint, or is it just CRM clutter? Those questions are going to reveal a lot, because tasks are not boring when they're designed well. They are the control points in your firm. They are the bridge between automation and client services. They are where the system pauses and says, now we need a human. And that is the point. Tasks are not the opposite of automations. Tasks are the partners of automation. Automation gets the work to the right moment. Tasks get the human involved at that moment. And this is how you avoid the 119 overdue task mess. Not by pretending tasks are bad, not by trying to automate every human interaction, but by making tasks smarter, cleaner, and more intentional. So I do want to put a final note on this before we go into the demo. Task management is intentional and should be in your time template for your week that you schedule out. They are not if I get around to it. You need to manage your tasks and communicate if there should be a task for something in the process, or if some of the tasks are meaningless and can go away. You have to manage your tasks and keep them up to date and keep them truthful. So your list is a list of truth, not chaos. So the key takeaways before we jump into the demo are: first, Lawmatic tasks are human checkpoints. They should represent work that needs a person, not the system that could do it automatically. Second, tasks and automations are different. Automations handle repeatable movements and predictable movements. Tasks handle manual human action and judgment. Third, automations can reduce tasks, but they should not eliminate every task. The goal is fewer, better tasks. Fourth, a good task should be clear. The person receiving it should know who owns it, what needs to happen, why it matters, and when it's due. Fifth, task statuses, subtasks, views, and notifications are not minor details. They are what makes the task system usable. Sixth, completing a task can become part of the workflow. A completed task can trigger the next task, the next automation, or the next step in the process. And finally, your task list should tell the truth. If your team trusts the task list, they will use it. If they do not trust it, they will work around it. If they do trust it and they're not doing their tasks, then that's a completely different conversation. Now, if you do want help setting this up, or if you want help with any part of Lawmatics as a CRM or practice management system, yes, we implement Lawmatics as a full practice management system. Schedule a free discovery meeting with us. We can talk through your current setup, where your task list is getting messy, what should be automated, what should stay human, and how to make the system easier for your team to actually use. So now we're going to jump into the Lawmatics demo and make this practical. But before I do that, Beth, I want to see what your comments are on this because you're definitely the process person in this, and this fits into your area of expertise.
Yeah, so one big thing on this is your clear, well-defined task. Um, so many times people just they want to stick a task in there that's just like check this. Well, what are you checking? Like when you're breaking that down, yeah, the person that's currently right there doing that may know what that means. Um, but we've had several firms that when you run into turnover, someone leaves. Now there's, 100 tasks in there that say to check this matter, and they're like, what were they checking? Like you don't even, there's no definition of what you're supposed to be checking. Um, and so really building those tasks out so they're useful in that and they do work hand in hand with what you're supposed to be doing. Like you're checking it, what are you checking it for? And what are you supposed to do with that information? Like there should be descriptions in there that say, if you need to check the matter, check if they did whatever. And then a big one is like funding when you're tracking funding stuff. Check their funding to see if everything's submitted. What do you do if it's not? Or what do you do if it is? Are you supposed to move that to another stage? Are you supposed to, and that is a big one because in a lot of firms, that's what happens. If they've submitted all their funding information, then you move it on to funding complete. The system then sends out that email to them and it's marked and everything else. So all of that, that is the human handhold that needs to take place there. Um, and really, when you're digging into that and you're going through all of that, it's really important that there is not just a task that says, check this, but also tells them what they're supposed to be doing so that it doesn't go, somebody goes, oh, I checked. Okay, but what did you do after that? So there really should be clear instructions on what is supposed to be done. That is my only takeaway from that.
Yeah, I love that. And that's just important. Just eliminate the noise. A
Right.
really good comparison to that is when you send an email to somebody with information that they requested, and every time you send something, they respond, thank you. I get that's polite, but in many instances, it's just, oh my gosh, I just wasted zero point 0.5 seconds reading an email that just said thank you. That can create noise. And that's the same with your tasks. Tasks that don't really add to the process are just creating noise. And I don't want to say don't respond to emails and say thank you, obviously. It's just an example that those types of things can become noise. All right, so now
Right.
we're going to take a look at how to create a task. We're going to look at editing your task status options so your task list matches how your firm actually works. We're going to add subtasks so larger tasks can be broken into smaller steps. We're going to look at different task views. Pardon me. Different task views so users and managers can see the work from different angles. And then we're going to look at adding automated tasks so Lawmatics can create the human checkpoint at the right time. And we'll look at turning on notifications for tasks because a task only helps if the right person knows it exists. So let's go ahead and just walk through this. So I'm going to stop my share and then I'm going to pop here. And then I'm going to come in here and now I'll share my full screen over here. All right. And I do want to get this. I do want to say an email just came out this morning from Lawmatics that they are going to introduce an integration with Teams, Microsoft Teams. I just want to say this before I forget. And so you'll be able to schedule your meetings in Teams just like it allows you to with Zoom right now. So that's really exciting. That's coming up. We just got the notification. I don't have a timeline on that, but I want to just put that out there. So the first thing I want to show you is how to create task categories and statuses. So is what I'm talking about here is if I create a task, these are your statuses. It's complete, it's not started, things like that. So under settings and tasks, these are your statuses. You can keep the default ones and add to them. You can remove the default ones and add different ones. And it's as simple as add a task status, type something that says maybe waiting on client, and then just pick your favorite color, or if you're organized, you can color code these. And then I like to turn this on. If all subtasks are marked as complete, mark the status as complete. I don't know why that didn't turn on, but you can turn that on. So now under, if I go into creating a task, then is what this looks like is I'm going to create prepare for sign meeting. Here, it's going to, here's where you have options. You can say, number one, do this, number two, do that. This is where you would put a description if it said call client. You would say call client to confirm something based on something because this task is for some reason. But for something like this, I would just add subtasks and I would say print documents. And then you could add another one that says prepare conference room and so on and so forth. So now you have all these different subs and then you can tick them off as you go. And then when you're done, it'll complete the task. That way you don't have to do everything at one time and you're detailed enough to see that everything is complete. Over here is where you can say a status. So I can say this is a follow-up. What's your priority? Be honest in this. Is it truly a medium or high, or is it just a normal task? Again, if everything screams emergency, then nothing is an emergency. Now you can choose your due date. You know, maybe I'm going to do that on the 6th. You can add times. And I always preface this. I never add times to my tasks. And here's why. Because the way I view my tasks, it'll only show up if it's on that time or after that time. So I always just turn that off and let it populate at midnight that morning. So I just know it's something I need to do that day. But if you want to add times, you're more than welcome to do it. You can assign it to anybody in your firm. Assigned by would be yourself. And then you associate it with a matter. Don't associate it with a contact 99.999% of the time. It's going to be associated with a matter. You can absolutely add tags if you want, and I'll show you where those show up. So we'll just add one that's follow-up. Here's where you would mark it done if you're not doing this to complete the tasks. You can make this a recurring task, and you can upload files here if you want. So I'm going to go ahead and create this task, and it is for the 6th. Okay. Now, I want to show you the task list views. So if I go to tasks on the left, this is all the tasks. This is a list view. This is where sometimes it can feel overwhelming. And this is where you can start to dial it in how you want to see it for what you're doing at a specific time. So you can filter by incomplete tasks, past due, upcoming, completed, no due date, and then all tasks. You can sort them by statuses. So I only want to see follow-up. And maybe I also want to see growth partners. So you can do multiple at a time. You can sort by priority. You can just look at a specific client's tasks, or you can go to their matter if you're going to do something like that. You want to see who it's assigned to, who it's assigned by. Maybe the first thing you do is you want to look at what the attorney assigned you. So you can just say, okay, here's my attorney right here. Here's what they assigned me. I'm going to knock these out first. And then you can look by date range and tags. That's where tags can come in. I can say I only want to see follow-up tags, things like that. Some people work good in lists. They have the Kanban view in Lawmatics. So if I click here, is what it does is takes all those statuses and puts them into columns. Is where this can come into play is, let's say growth partners. There's tasks for that. Maybe the person who handles growth partners just wants them organized in a growth partners column. So if they're going to work on growth partners for an hour, they can come right here and there's all their growth partner tasks. Or maybe it is verify that a form was received, was form received, and you can have a column for that and just knock those out. This is a great, great way to organize your tasks. Now, Beth, before I go on, you're really good at explaining this. Did I miss anything of purpose of task statuses?
No. Well, one thing that it's a great management tool. Because you can come in here easily and look at things and go, okay, my follow-ups are falling behind. We have 2 past due tasks in there. And especially when you're first starting out, one of the things we do a lot is put the automation paused automations in there or task in there. So somebody needs to do something. So if you look at that, like that automation, this is one of those hand-holding things. This automation started, but some of the data wasn't there that was needed. And so it created a task that says, hey, there's no follow-up type selected. And if you look at this task, it does tell you exactly what to do. Add the follow-up type to the matter and restart the automation. That's what you need to do. Very clear. So it can go in there and tell you that's what's going on. They should know how to restart that automation, and that should be part of the training, okay? But it's very nice to be able to go in here and audit your stuff and go, there's no automation pause task in there. Like those have all been taken care of. Nothing's falling through the cracks. The whole point of automations, task, everything is to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. And this is just one way to do it. And it's one way for a manager to audit, not just your employees, but your system itself, and see how it's working.
Yep, absolutely. I do want to show you now that a task is created, you'll see some other features that popped in here. You can put comments to yourself. If you assigned it to somebody else, they can put a comment. And that's great. I want to clarify and be very clear as well. This does not replace file notes. It's just a very quick back and forth about the task. Like I could write in here, called the client. The form is halfway complete. They said they would give it to us tomorrow. So that way, when I open this task, I can quickly see, okay, they said they're going to give it to me tomorrow. I haven't ticked it off, so I'm going to check up with them. If they haven't, then I'm going to contact them again. So it's just kind of my little notes for this little process. So that's really handy. Go
I
ahead.
want to add one thing in there as well. When you assign this, you can assign tasks to multiple people. So here is one way that firms use this. They will assign it to multiple people, and whoever completes it completes it. Like once it's complete, it's not a separate task for each person. Once that task is complete, the task is just done. It disappears from both. But when you do that, that's where the communication part comes in, especially if you're using a task like this where you have one task and several subtasks. If different people are jumping in and doing different parts of that process, especially like when you have an intake team, you have 4 or 5 people, you have all of those going, they can have their own comment section about what's going on with that whole task process. So that is a very important thing. And yes, subtask can be done in automations. Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So now I want to show you what an automated task looks like. So if I go to automations and workflows, this is where all the automations live. And I'm just going to go into testing and I'll create one here. So I'm going to make a trigger based and I'm going to call this automated task test. I'm going to make the target type a matter. Beth covered all of this. If you haven't seen the anatomy of an automation, go on our website to our Legal Tech Academy, and that video is up there for a deep dive into automations. And then status, is it just going to be potential new clients, just hired, or just lost? Or can it be any of those? A lot of times I'll tick all, so nothing falls through the cracks, but you can select 1, 2, or 3, and then that's the folder it goes in. So I'm going to just go ahead and create this. And I'm going to say I'm just going to pick one. When a consultation form is submitted, um, every time a form is submitted for consultation, then maybe I want to add a task here. And I want to say review consultation form. The due date is going to be, I can even say 0 days after the task is created. So when it's created, it's just due that day to keep it moving along. Put a description if you want, just make sure it's clear. Again, this is an automation. So you have to take in consideration, if somebody gets hit by a bus and somebody has to step in, did you prepare this well enough that that person stepping in can also do this task? And then choose your status. This is where I can drop it in a proper column, is what I guess I would say this. And maybe this one is firm review or FRIM review. It's typed wrong. Who do you want to assign it to? Here is a really key part of automation tasks. You can absolutely pick a name. That doesn't mean that's the best way to do it. The best way to do it is role-based. So I'm going to say this goes to the client service coordinator that's assigned to that matter. The reason why, well, I'm going to actually let Beth explain this because she runs into this every single day. So I'm going to let her explain why we do role-based in an automation.
Okay, so doing role-based in an automation is very important because if someone leaves your firm, now you have all of these, you have to figure out everywhere that these tasks are being assigned to them as a person. And yes, in Lawmatics, you can have Lawmatics switch one person with another person. However, what if you're not hiring somebody right away? Now you're kind of in limbo, and it really does cause a lot of like issues with that. So being able to assign it to a role and say this is the client service coordinator, and whoever is the client service coordinator on the matter is who gets that task. Now you can go in and you can run an automation, a quick use automation that is one time, and you go in and you say, "Yep, here's my I want to change everyone." All the client service coordinator, if it was this person, make it this person and switch it. So you can do all of that kind of stuff in bulk and in mass. If you have like 10 open matters, not a big deal. If you have 5,000 open matters, it's huge. And like you don't want somebody sitting there manually doing that. And this eliminates that completely to be able to switch the roles to someone else. What if like you now have added another person? So this is another place. You're growing. Now you don't have one client service coordinator, you have two, and you're assigning matters to two different people. Now you have to go into all of your automations and change that. So yeah, assigning things to a person is never a good idea in an automation at all. And I always suggest that you have if you are using an automation to assign someone to a role, um, that you make sure you know where that's happening so that you can go back and find that and adjust that if you need to.
Yep. And I'm going to just take it one step further. Even if the owner is the attorney, we had this happen in our law firm. Our attorney was hit head on by a drunk driver and she wasn't able to work for a while. And so we had a contract attorney for a while. Doing this, you can just change that so that it can go to the other person. Or if you have two attorneys and one gets hit by a bus, the other attorney can take over just by changing the names instead of coming into every automation and updating it every time a role changes. Okay, and then the next step is assign by. Just you can choose that right there. Now, this one right here, I'll let you assign, and you can do this in the manual task. If you have portals open for clients, you can absolutely assign tasks to portal contacts. And then when they open their portal, they can see tasks that they need to complete. You can absolutely do that if that's going to be part of your process. And then you can make this recurring as well. Here's how you add subtasks in an automation. I would just click here and I would say, make sure all information is filled out and maybe ensure client knows next steps. It's not a great example because the automation usually handles that. Now I'm going to hit save. Now is what we want to do is once this is complete, we want it to do something else, like trigger another task. So what I can do is now I can say add a delay until something occurs. I can say when this task is completed, then create this task or move to another stage or send a document. You can do anything based on this task being completed. The other thing you can do is you can say delay until, and you can add an if condition. You can say, if this task is not completed, send a reminder to the client service person, maybe 24 hours after. If it's still not completed 24 hours after that, maybe send it to the firm manager. So there can be some checkpoints or guardrails and check-ins on getting these tasks done so this doesn't stall the process. Any comments on that part, Beth? Perfect. So now, and then when you're done, you just turn it on. And Beth did this in the automation session, but I want to clarify this again. This is going to activate on every single client that matches this criteria. If you want that to happen, hit activate. If you only want it to start happening now forward, say future matches only. For creating tasks, it's not as important, but still gauge it. This is really important when you're firing emails, text, moving stages, because it will start firing on all of those matches. All right, so the last thing I want to show you is the notifications. So when you go into settings, remember in settings, the top 4 are your own personal settings that don't affect the system. They're only your login. Everything below is global. So I'm going to go under notifications, and there's several task notifications. And I want to say this with caution. Tick what you want, but it's okay to come readjust them at any time. I tend to do overkill on turning on notifications for myself, and then it becomes noise. So I come back and dial it back because I realize half those notifications I'm not even using, and they're just becoming noise with everything. So in notifications, it has in-app and it has email. In-app just means they're going to show up here on the little exclamation point as a notification. Email means you're going to get an email of that. You can turn both on or just one or the other. So now under tasks is what you can be notified on is a lot. So again, it's okay to tick what you want, but just remember, you can come change it if it becomes obnoxious. If there's a task comment that is only you mentioned, you can say, send me an email or an in-app notification that somebody commented to me in a task. A task commented, that means any task or anybody commented on a task. That is going to get overwhelming. I'm going to tell you that right now if you guys use task comments. When a task is created, this is going to get overwhelming. You're going to get notified every single time a task is created. I don't care if you are the owner of the firm or a firm manager. This is overwhelming and it doesn't serve really any purpose. It's just going to be noise. And we always like to say, stop wasting time just to look busy. Just because you have 500 emails in there doesn't mean what you're doing is meaningful. Clear out the noise and just do meaningful work. A task is due. You can absolutely do that if you want to know when a task is due. Task marked is done. Do you really want to be notified every time? Task only mine commented. That means a task that is yours, somebody commented on. Um, and then task only mine created. That's when a task for you is created, when a task for you is due, and a task only mine, which is you, marked as done. I'm not going to lie that there is not really any of these for me that I would turn on because I monitor my tasks. And then there should be checkpoints in the automation that's delivering. If a task isn't complete, it's notifying the person doing it. And then if it needs to be escalated, it's going up to a manager, things like that. That's really what's driving that. Any
The
comment on
the
that,
only
Beth?
one the only one on that that would not that I would suggest for people to turn on is the task comment only mine mentioned if you are doing something like I talked about where you have an intake team and you're assigning it to multiple people, because that really does help to get a notification, like especially if you're like, oh, I'm gonna go do that next. Getting that notification to know that those things are happening is important. Especially if you are a leader of that team and you want to keep an eye on things. That is one that I may turn on. The rest of them they're redundant.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point because you're not going to check every task every time to see if somebody commented. That is better to have a
Right.
notification of that.
Yep.
Good interjection. All right, so we'll go into Q&A. And before we wrap this up, I just want to say a quick note for everyone watching on YouTube. Um, we always stop the recording here and then open it up for live Q&A. This part isn't recorded, so people can ask real questions and talk through real situations. If you want to be a part of that conversation, we do it live every Friday at noon Eastern. It's free, and the link to join is in the description.